Okay, for this next exercise, we're going to be moving our object along an organic path. So it'll be similar to the spatial interpolation, the exercise 3 path, except that instead of it being angular like it is, it's all going to be curvy. Now this is one that might be better off drawn in another software or by hand on paper preemptively before going into After Effects, although we can do it inside of After Effects itself using the pen tool. So whichever way is more comfortable for you, it's just important that it is a curvy path with no angles. So I'm going to create a new composition by going to Composition, New Composition. I'm going to change the name from Comp 1 to Exercise 5. And for the duration, now so far every time we've made a new composition, the duration has automatically been for 5 seconds long. However, in the previous exercise, after we completed the exercise, the 5 seconds was too long, so we went back and changed the duration by going to Composition, Composition Settings, and changing it to 1.5 seconds, 1:12 here. So that's why it's automatically set for a 1:12 duration, 1.5 second duration for this new composition. But we're not going to want the animation to be that short. So I'm going to change this to 5. Again, it looks like 5 minutes, but remember the last two numbers are in reference to the frames, not the seconds. So this is 5 seconds. Last one are frames, these two are seconds, these two are minutes, and this is hours. So I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to use the pen tool to draw a very curvy path. Now I don't want any kind of fill, so I'm going to go over to the fill, hold down the Option key, and click on it until it is gray with a red diagonal line through it. So that just means no fill, it's going to be empty. I do want to have a stroke of some kind though, so I'm just going to change the number to 2 pixels at the top, and my stroke color is white, which is fine. And again, if it is easier to draw this out in another software or by hand on paper, that would be fine. And in that case, we would just go to File, Import, and import the drawing. But if we're going to be drawing it straight on After Effects, then we can use the pen tool. And I'm going to place down some points. Just be careful not to touch the, like if I'm crossing over the path, don't touch the path, otherwise what it's going to do is add more points on the path. That's what that little arrow nib, or that little pen nib with a plus sign means, it's just adding extra points, which is not what we want. Okay. And let's hope that's not too confusing. So there we go. We have a path, and let's adjust it. You can adjust any points on your path using the selection tool to change it. Let's make this a little smaller. And you can adjust the curves themselves by adjusting the handles. Okay, so there we go. So now let's create a new layer. Now, if you start drawing and you don't go to Layer New first, if you have no layer selected, it will automatically create a shape layer. Now, if I have this layer selected and I go in and start drawing anything, it's going to add a new shape, a new path inside of the shape layer. So you can have multiple shapes inside of the same shape layer, which we did in the previous exercise. I'm going to right mouse click this one and call it Guide. So if I wanted to make a circle, a small object to move along this path, I could do it by going to Layer, New Shape Layer, or I can, without having this layer selected, make sure this layer is not selected, you can go and take the ellipse tool and I could just draw it somewhere on the page. I'm going to left mouse down and drag and hold down Shift. And I'm going to change the fill and give it a fill by holding down the Option key and clicking on the fill once so that it's filled in. And I'm going to drop the stroke to 0. There we go. I'm also going to move the anchor point by selecting on the newly made Shape 1 layer, grab the pan behind, grab the anchor point and move it over. And I'm going to rename this layer by clicking on it and then hitting the return key on the keyboard, and I'm going to call it circle or ball. Whatever it is that makes it easy to tell what it is I want to do. And I'm going to close contents and open transform because that's what we're going to be animating. And I'm going to zoom in, pick a place for the ball to start. Just going to adjust the pan behind so that it's right in the center. It'll be a little easier to work with. There you go. And you can really start the ball wherever you want. So let's start it here. And let's give it 4 frames before it starts. So I'm going to hit the position key. Places a keyframe down on the 4th frame. Then let's try 12. I'm going to move this down here. And I'm going to adjust the handles. There we go. And it looks like that's going to go rather fast. Let's move this a little bit further apart. Again, if you move keyframes farther apart, it will slow down the process, so slow down the animation. If you move the keys closer together, it will be quicker because you're giving it less time, if the keys are closer together, to move the same distance. If you move the keyframes farther apart, you're giving it more time to travel the same distance. So now I'm going to move this a little further ahead. Move this over. And I'm going to use the Convert Vertex tool to give this a handle. I couldn't see that there was one. Not to say that there wasn't a handle, but I didn't see one. And if you ever don't see a handle, you could always just drag one out by using the Convert Vertex tool. And if there was a handle, well, it disappeared and then it'll be back. Okay. There we go. We'll go a little while later. And let's try for all the way up here. Okay, pulling that handle, pulling this one down, pull this one further. And I know one of the challenges for this can be figuring out how far apart to space your object. You may find that you need to put the keyframes a little bit closer together, and that's fine. There you go. Just be careful if you have lots of keyframes really close together, it can get a little harder to control. So the optimal would be the least amount of keyframes as needed for the arcs to work. Let's try down here. I'm going to grab the Convert Vertex, pull this out. There we go. Let's go a bit further. So it curves in, then this way, then this way. So let's try, this might work okay. Let's try over here. Pull out a handle. There we go. And I'm going to use the Convert Vertex with this handle over here too because this curve is fine. And if I pull this in with the regular selection tool, it's going to pull both. Yeah, see, it's pulling both sides. It's affecting this one. And that curve was actually just fine. So I'm going to use the Convert Vertex tool, grab this handle and shrink it. And as you can see, it no longer affects this side because it breaks the tangent of those handles. There we go. And let's go a few frames later. And to an extent, I'm somewhat guessing the distances here. I am going to go through and check the timing, and if the timing looks very different, then like if there's a sudden burst of speed or a sudden drop in speed, then I may adjust. But I'm mostly aiming to make the path follow the curve properly and making sure and hoping to give it enough time so that we can see it actually travel the path, because if these keyframes are too close together, then you won't even really be able to appreciate the circle's path. It'll just look like it's teleporting around. So bringing the keyframes a little further apart to slow it down a little bit is possibly something we'll need to do here. So I'm going to move it. Okay, let's move this handle down. And let's see if this handle is showing on both sides. No, no handles at all. Okay, so I'm going to pull this one out. Pull this one in. And pull this one in a bit. And if you find that you really can't get the curves to work with the handles, then it might just mean that your keyframes may be too far apart. Or there may be too much curve. You may need to move the keyframes a little closer together. In terms of the location, so bringing it closer, let's say this way. Okay, there we go. So we'll go a little further. Okay, I'm going to pull this, and yeah, that's not quite right. See how that one looks okay. Okay, let me pull out handles from this point and see if that will help. Okay. And move this up a little. And now adjust the keys, or the path. Yeah, let's move this up a little higher. Move this down. Bring this forward. There we go. Okay. And let's try bringing this one down. And pull out handles from this keyframe. Pull this one in. So it's just a matter of pushing and pulling these handles until they're creating the curve that we want. And if we can't get it to create the curve that we want, then it's most likely that we've put the keyframes too far, like the position too far. Okay, there we go. And I did not give myself enough space here. So in the previous exercise, exercise 4, we found that the duration was too long for what we needed. In this case, it looks like it may not be far enough or long enough. So we can just go to composition, composition settings, and I'm going to change the duration to 7 seconds. We can always shrink it down afterwards, and I find it easier to shrink it down than it is to expand, particularly for this reason. One thing you might notice is that when we expanded the duration of the After Effects file, these blue bars end at 5, and if I scroll or scrub my time indicator past 5 seconds, everything disappears. And that's just because by default, the duration of a still image, which these shapes are considered still images, the duration of them is the length of the composite. So if we want to expand it, we just have to move the mouse to the edge, the blue edge, and your arrow should turn into another arrow pointing left and right. At this case, we can left mouse down and drag to make it longer. Now we can also do this to multiple at the same time. By clicking on one, it can be the topmost layer, or it can be the bottommost layer. Hold down Shift, select the other one. So if you selected the top, then Shift select the bottom. If you selected the bottom, then shift select the top, grab the corner or the edge, and the little arrow will point left and right, and you'll find as you drag the duration of your layer, it will drag both of them, and therefore I'm expanding it to 7. Be careful to do that. Don't grab in the middle and move it, because you're going to be moving all the keyframes, and that also means that you're making it start later, which can be what you want, but that's not what we're looking for here. So now I'm just going to go to about 5 seconds in, and move the, whoops. So as I'm pulling this, I can see that it's affecting that curve on the left, but that curve looks like it's pretty good, so I don't want to do that. So I'm going to grab the Convert Vertex tool. Again, remember, if it's not showing up here, if it looks like a pen nib instead, then just left mouse down on top of it until a little submenu appears. I'm still holding the left mouse button. Then you just move the mouse over to the tool that you want to use, in this case the Convert Vertex tool, then let go. Then you can grab the handle and pull it, and as you can see now, the handle, this curve is not being affected, and that's because the Convert Vertex tool allows you to do what's called breaking the tangents, which means that you're breaking the handles, so instead of them moving like a seesaw and affecting the curves on both sides, it is isolating the curve on one side only. And now, I'm going to go a few frames later, grab this first keyframe and paste it. Again, that's copy and pasting. I'm just going to move this a little closer to the frame before so it's a little quicker. And let's move this. There we go. So let's see how this looks. Now I pretty much guessed the timing, so probably going to have some, I can already tell just by looking at it, that we have a much quicker action right here. These little dots are spaced farther apart, and this part's much slower. The dots are much closer. So we are going to have some adjustments to make, but let's hit space and see what it looks like. Yeah. Okay, so let's speed up this part, because the quicker action was pretty nice. There we go. That curve was a little not curvy. Okay, so let's see. So if you want to see where this is, you can select on either one of these keys, and you can see them highlight down here. So this key corresponds with this point. I can click on this one, and we can see that it corresponds with this key. So we're going to left mouse down and drag. And I'm going to adjust them until the spacing looks about the same. There we go. Okay. And let's give it a little bit of an easy ease. Let's easy ease out. And then let's at least make the ending ease in. So I'm going to grab the ending and ease in. Okay, this part still feels a little slow. So that one and this one. Let's bring them closer together. Okay. And what about this? About this one? Okay. Closer. There we go. Make that part quicker. And make the keys after it a little quicker. Okay. See how that looks? This part seems a little fast compared to the rest, so grab all the keys after that point and there we go. This is the part I'm aiming to change. That part's a little fast comparatively. There we go. You're not always going to want all the motion to be the same speed throughout, but studying it like this and maintaining it for these abstract motions can be helpful, because it's just learning how to control the timing and spacing and being able to gauge which parts are quicker and slower. There are times where we're going to want the animation to be actively quicker or slower and done with intent. Let's see, this part could be a little quicker. This part's a little slow. Right here. Okay. And then maybe this part. Okay. And there we go. Command S for save or file save. And that is animating your object on a path that is curvy rather than angular.